Did you know when you enter heaven, you will lose your gender? You won't be male. You won't be female. I know that sounds strange, even unsettling. But by the end of this video, you'll understand what 99% of people miss about what really happens to your body after death. Because what the Bible and ancient sacred texts reveal is this: forget what you've seen in paintings, forget what you've heard in Sunday school. Today, we're uncovering 10 shocking things that happen to your physical body in heaven. Changes so dramatic, you might never look at the afterlife the same again. Let's begin. Number 1. Your body becomes incorruptible. Let's start with one of the most shocking changes. Your body will never break down again. No sickness, no weakness, no decay. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, Paul drops this powerful truth. Paul stated, "It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body." In other words, the body you have now, it's temporary, fragile, wasting away. But the body that's coming, it's immortal, perfected, divine. Paul even calls it a spiritual body, which doesn't mean ghostly or vague. It means animated by heaven, no longer bound by earthly limitations. And he's not the only one who said this. In 2 Baruch chapter 51, an ancient Jewish apocalypse, the righteous are described as clothed with the garment of life. The glory of God shall be upon them, and pain shall be far from them. No pain, no aging, no death. This wasn't just a metaphor. Ancient readers believed the glorified body was incapable of decay. In fact, early church fathers like Irenaeus and Origen believed that this new body would shine, not just in beauty, but in power. Now let's go back even further, to the Garden of Eden. In some versions of the book of Adam and Eve, Adam tells Eve that before the fall, they had radiant, glowing bodies, clothed in light, untouched by suffering or shame. But after sin, that light vanished. Their bodies became corruptible, just like ours are today. So this isn't new. It's a restoration of what humanity once had and lost. Even ancient cultures grasped this idea. In Egypt, the pharaohs were buried with gold, believing they'd be reborn into eternal, perfected bodies. In Greek thought, heroes who entered the afterlife were granted ageless forms. The yearning was universal, but the Bible actually gives the blueprint. Your glorified body will be like Jesus' resurrected body, able to eat, speak, and be touched, but also able to pass through walls, appear at will, and never die again. Incorruptible, indestructible, divine. You won't just live forever. You'll never wear out. Pause. They only gave you the safe version of heaven, but inside the forbidden vault, nothing is off limits. You'll uncover the ancient texts the church won't talk about. Secrets from Enoch, Baruch, and apocalyptic writings that were once banned. Truths about angels, hybrids, heavenly realms, and what really happens after death. If today's revelation shook you, you've only scratched the surface. Click the link below and unlock the forbidden vault before this knowledge is lost forever. Unfiltered, uncensored, unmasked. Okay, let's continue to the video. Number 2, divine language and thunderous voice. Let's talk about your voice in heaven. Not only will you think differently, you'll speak differently. According to the Testament of Job, when Job was taken up in spirit, he was immediately able to speak the language of the angels. He didn't have to learn it. He just knew it. This same idea shows up across ancient Jewish mysticism, that the souls of the righteous are restored to their original pre-fall tongue.
When we touch here, maybe just try this, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, that feels nice, yeah? That's good. So just do that because it feels comforting, because when you...
Sometimes called the divine language, the tongue of light, or the heavenly code. And it's not just about the language. In the Apocalypse of Paul, Paul describes hearing voices in heaven that sound like rushing waters and rolling thunder. In Revelation chapter 14 verse 2 says, I heard a voice from heaven, like the sound of many waters, like the sound of loud thunder. Think about that. In heaven, your voice isn't just sound, it's force, it's music, it's spirit-powered speech that vibrates with divine energy. Today, some near-death experiencers report something eerily similar. They say in the afterlife, no one talks the way we do. Instead, language is instant and vibrational. You feel what someone is saying before you even process it with words. Some even describe voices that sing when they speak. And maybe that's why in ancient times, God's voice was always described as thunder or wind. It wasn't just sound, it was movement. It shaped reality. In heaven, your voice is no longer limited to sound waves and breath. It becomes part of the divine fabric, a living expression of who you are. So yes, in heaven, you'll still speak, but your voice will carry power. Power that creates, power that heals, power that sounds like thunder and sings like wind. Number 3, no shadow. Now, this next transformation is strange, almost eerie. In heaven, you won't have a shadow. I know, that sounds like a sci-fi fantasy, but it's actually rooted in some of the oldest mystical writings we have. In Zohar Volume 1, Section Vayera, it says, the righteous in paradise have no shadow. Why? Because a shadow means something is blocking light, but in heaven there's nothing between you and the glory of God. You don't block it. You become one with it. Your body doesn't absorb or reflect the light. It radiates it. This idea also appears in the book of Enoch. In chapter 104, the righteous are promised, your faces shall shine like the lights of heaven. You shall be seen, and the gates of heaven shall be open to you. They're literally glowing. But here's what's wild. In early Christian mysticism, some believed that Adam and Eve before the fall had no shadows either. They were clothed in glory, bodies of light. But when they sinned, that light dimmed. Their nakedness in Genesis wasn't just physical. It was the absence of divine radiance. And in some versions of the life of Adam and Eve, a text found in early church circles, Adam even laments, my skin was once bright with light, but now it is darkened. So what does this mean for you? Your shadow today is a reminder that you still live in a world where light is blocked by fear, sin, ego, mortality. But in the next world, you are so infused with divine radiance that even your body refuses to cast a shadow. It's not just poetic, it's symbolic. No shadow, no darkness, no separation, no hidden parts. It means you walk fully in the presence and power of the light. And in heaven, there is no more room for darkness, not even yours. Number 4, garments of light. Let's talk about your clothes in heaven, but not cotton, not silk, not gold-threaded robes from some celestial fashion house. No, the garments you'll wear in the next world aren't made of fabric at all. They're made of glory. In 1 Enoch 62:15-16, the vision is stunning. The righteous shall wear garments of glory. Their clothes shall be as radiant as the sun, whiter than snow, and the glory of the Lord shall be upon them. These garments aren't stitched, they're bestowed. They aren't worn like outfits. They become part of who you are. And this isn't just in Enoch. In Revelation 6:11, the souls of the martyrs, those who died for their faith, are each given a white robe, not as decoration, but as recognition. White robes, purity, victory, honor in the presence of God. And there's something deeper happening here. In the book of Psalms, David says, bless the Lord, O my soul. who clothes you with light as with a garment. Psalm 104, 1-2. Did you catch that? Clothed with light. That was always the divine plan. Now think back to Eden. In many ancient Jewish and Christian traditions, Adam and Eve weren't naked the way we think. They were clothed in light, radiant beings covered in divine glory. But when they sinned, that light vanished. Genesis says their eyes were opened, and they saw they were naked. But many early writings say what really happened was they lost their covering of glory. And here's what's beautiful. In heaven, that lost light returns. But this time, it never fades. Some early Christian mystics even went further. They believe the robe of glory isn't separate from you. It's an extension of your new body. It moves with your spirit, shines with your holiness, and reveals your identity in heaven's realm. And this is confirmed in the Odes of Solomon, one of the oldest Christian hymn books. In Ode 11, the writer says, "He put on me a garment of glory. I became bright like the light, and I was lifted up in his love." Now, let's take a breath and really let that sink in. In the world today, your clothing hides who you are. In heaven, your clothing reveals it. It's not stitched, it's bestowed. It doesn't cover shame, it expresses divine dignity. It doesn't fade or wear out, it radiates forever. So when you enter the kingdom of God, you're not just made whole, you're wrapped in light. And that light becomes your witness. That's what the white robe means. That's what garments of glory are. You won't be dressing up in heaven. You'll be unveiled. Number 5, your breath becomes spirit wine. Take a deep breath. Feels ordinary, right? Just air filling your lungs. But in heaven, your breath isn't just air anymore. It becomes power. In Jewish mystical tradition, especially in the Sefer HaBahir, one of the earliest Kabbalistic texts, there's a powerful teaching. The Ruach, the spirit breath of the righteous, is no longer limited to oxygen. It becomes like divine wind, active, intelligent, and spirit-charged, a force, used not just for speech, but for praise, healing, even command. We see a glimpse of this in John 20:22. After his resurrection, Jesus appears to his disciples. And what does he do? He breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit." He didn't hand them a scroll. He didn't give them a sword. He gave them breath, but not ordinary breath, spirit-infused breath. And in that moment, he transferred power. Now think back to the very beginning, Genesis 2:7. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Human life begins with divine breath, but in heaven, it's fully restored. Your breath isn't just life-sustaining, it becomes life-giving. In Midrash Rabbah, there's an ancient saying, "The righteous do not speak. Their very breath praises God." It's like saying, in heaven, you don't have to try to worship. Your entire being is worship. Your breath naturally praises. Your sigh moves angels. Your whisper echoes like wind through eternity. And here's where it gets even deeper. The Hebrew word ruach means spirit, wind, and breath all at once. In ancient thought, these were never separate. Wind was invisible but powerful, just like the spirit. And in heaven, you become one with that force. Some early mystics even taught that in the resurrection, the righteous will speak not with lips, but with breath. Breath that heals, breath that creates, breath that commands the atmosphere. And maybe you've seen hints of this before. In Revelation 11, it says, "The breath of life from God entered them, and they stood on their feet." Divine breath raises the dead. So imagine what it will be like when that same breath lives inside you. In heaven, Every breath you take is not just survival, it's glory in motion. You won't breathe to stay alive. You'll breathe because you've become alive.
That's why your nerves are deteriorating and your feet are burning. Did you know that neuropathy is a completely reversible condition? It may not
Completely. Number 6, no gender distinction. All right, let's talk about the part you really came for. You will not have a gender in heaven. I know that's hard to imagine. For your whole life, you've been shaped by it. Your body, your name, even your role in society. But according to ancient texts, and even the words of Jesus, gender is a temporary structure, not eternal, not divine. In Logan 114 of the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says something wild. When you make the male and female into a single one, so that the male will not be male and the female not be female, then you will enter the kingdom. Now, this wasn't about erasing who you are. It was about transcending it, becoming whole as you were always meant to be. Think about it. When Jesus was challenged by the Sadducees about marriage in heaven, he answered clearly in Matthew 22. At the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the angels in heaven. Let that sink in. No marriage, no procreation. Because in heaven, we become like the angels. And angels? They have no gender. They appear in male form for human understanding, but their essence is spiritual, complete, beyond physical distinction. Now here's the twist. In ancient Hebrew mysticism, especially in the Zohar and Kabbalistic thought, gender is seen as a manifestation of spiritual division. Not sin, not flaw, just incompleteness. The soul, they taught, was originally whole, and when it entered the world, it split into male and female forms, physical vessels to learn, to grow, to reflect God in different ways. But in the world to come, that separation ends. The two halves reunite. You become what Adam and Eve were before the fall, radiant, unified beings reflecting the full image of God. Even in the book of Jubilees, when it recounts the creation story, it emphasizes that Adam was created first as one, and only later was Eve drawn out. In Eden, before division, there was unity. Heaven restores that. And here's something even wilder. The early Christian thinker Origen believed that after resurrection, the body will still exist, but it will no longer be subject to desire, reproduction, or earthly roles. It will be spiritualized, elevated, pure. And in many ancient cultures, from Egypt to Babylon, the idea of divine beings beyond gender was common. They believed the gods had merged essences, able to embody wisdom, power, nurturing, strength, without being locked into male or female roles. Heaven isn't about losing identity, it's about shedding limitation. You'll no longer be man or woman, you'll just be radiant, complete, fully you, the you that existed in God's mind before your body ever took shape. Think of it this way. Right now, we see life in halves, masculine/feminine, sun/moon, yin-yang. But in heaven, it's fusion. The split is healed. You are one, not binary, not divided, but eternal spirit, carrying both peace and fire, tenderness and might, wisdom and power, in perfect harmony. So yes, when you enter heaven, you will not be male. You will not be female. You will be like the angels. Speaking of angels, one of the clearest ways we understand the absence of gender in heaven is by looking at those who already dwell there, the angels. Now here's where it gets fascinating and a little dark. In the book of Enoch, the Watchers, a group of angels assigned to observe humanity, are said to have abandoned their heavenly post. Why? Because unlike the righteous angels, the Watchers desired to take human form, so they could reproduce with the daughters of men. But here's the key point. They had to leave their natural state to do this. In Enoch 6-7, it says, "They left their proper habitation and took wives for themselves." Their very descent was rebellion, not just because of lust, but because they crossed a boundary God never intended them to cross. And Jude 1:6 echoes this. "And the angels who did not keep their own domain, but abandoned their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains under darkness." This tells us something critical. In their natural heavenly form, angels do not reproduce. They aren't male or female the way we are. They don't marry. They don't multiply. That's why those fallen angels had to take on flesh in order to act on desires that didn't belong to their design. Now, contrast that with righteous angels like Gabriel. When Gabriel appears to Mary in Luke 1, he comes in the form of a man, but that form is for us, not for him. He doesn't need gender. He's simply using a human appearance so we can understand and not be overwhelmed. And it's not just Gabriel. Throughout Scripture, whenever angels appear, they often take on male form, not because they are male, but because humanity expects to see strength, leadership, or divine authority through a masculine lens. But that's not who they are. That's just a mask. In truth, angels are beyond gender. They're pure function, pure spirit, pure light. And that's exactly what we are promised to become. So when Jesus says, "You will be like the angels," he's not being poetic. He's revealing a metamorphosis, a return to your original essence. Not male, not female, but spirit-filled and God-reflecting. This doesn't erase who you are. It removes the limits placed on you by this broken world. Because in heaven, the goal isn't separation, it's restoration. Number 7, eyes that see across dimensions. In heaven, you don't just get new clothes. You don't just get a new body. You get new eyes. And not just eyes that see better, eyes that see everything. In the ascension of Isaiah, chapter 7, the prophet is taken up into the heavenly realms. And what does he say? "And I saw the heavens opened, and I beheld the throne of God, and nothing was hidden from me." Let that line settle in. Nothing was hidden. These aren't physical eyes anymore. They're revelatory. They pierce through time, through dimensions, through veils that keep the average human blind. You'll no longer just see forms. You'll see meaning. You'll see spirit. You'll perceive the unseen, just like the prophets of old. And this isn't just a fringe idea. In 2 Kings 6, when Elisha's servant is panicking about an approaching army, Elisha doesn't grab a sword. He prays, "Lord, open his eyes that he may see." And suddenly, the servant sees angelic chariots of fire all around them. They were there the whole time, but it took spiritual eyes to perceive them. That's the kind of vision the righteous receive in heaven. Even in the book of Revelation, John constantly says things like, "I looked, and behold, then I saw, and I saw heaven opened." Over and over, the emphasis is on divine sight, not just seeing events.
This brilliant device keeps your home cool in summer, even during heat waves and power outages. It's smaller than a lunchbox, cools any room within 3 minutes, and uses 98.7%.
But seeing realms, symbols, mysteries that ordinary eyes could never grasp. And here's something profound from the Zohar, an ancient Jewish mystical text. The eyes of the righteous will gaze upon the light that created the world, and in that light, they will know all things. In other words, in heaven, sight becomes understanding. What's hidden becomes known. What's spiritual becomes visible. What's eternal becomes clear. Today, we're limited. We look through mirrors dimly, as Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 13:12. Now we see in a mirror, dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully. Your future vision isn't just clarity, it's communion, it's face-to-face knowledge. No secrets, no confusion, no lies, only truth, unveiled before your transformed eyes. You will see time from the outside. You will see angels as they are. You will see God, not as a symbol, not as a hope, but in radiant glory. Your eyes won't just look anymore. They will reveal. Now, if you're wondering what this kind of sight actually looks like, look no further than the angels. They've had it all along. In fact, in apocalyptic and mystical literature, angels are often described not as beings with eyes, but as beings covered in eyes. Let's start with the cherubim. In Ezekiel 10:12, the prophet describes the angelic wheels, known as the Ophanim, and says, their entire bodies, including their backs, hands, wings, and wheels, were full of eyes all around. Why eyes? Because in heaven, awareness is sight. These beings don't look in one direction at a time. They perceive all directions, all realms, simultaneously. And in the book of Revelation 4:6-8, John sees the living creatures around God's throne, full of eyes in front and behind, around and within. These are not horror movie creatures. They're symbols of divine perception. Nothing escapes them. No darkness hides. No secret remains unknown. These eyes represent total vision, physical, spiritual, moral, and cosmic. And here's the best part. That's exactly what's promised to the righteous. The kind of sight angels have. The kind of perception that sees not just what is, but why it is. That becomes part of your glorified body. In the book of Daniel 10, Daniel encounters a radiant being, widely believed to be either an angel or a theophany, God appearing as a messenger. And how does he describe him? His eyes were like flaming torches, eyes of fire, not just seeing, but judging, illuminating, purifying. Even Jesus himself, in his resurrected glory in Revelation 1:14, is described the same way. His eyes were like blazing fire. So when we talk about your heavenly sight, we're not talking about better vision. We're talking about angelic clarity, a gaze that cuts through deception, eyes that burn with truth, perception that sees from God's perspective. You won't just see heaven, you'll see as heaven sees. Number 8, radiate divine fragrance. This next one might surprise you, because when we imagine heaven, we rarely ask, what will I smell like? But in the ancient world, fragrance wasn't just about scent. It was a spiritual signature. And according to mystical texts, in heaven, your body will radiate a divine aroma. Let's start with the Zohar, one of the foundational texts of Jewish mysticism. It teaches that the righteous, once glorified, give off a heavenly fragrance that can be sensed across dimensions, like the sweet smell of incense rising in the temple of God. Why incense? Because in the Bible, incense was never just for aroma. It was symbolic of presence, of purity, of prayers rising. Psalm 141 says, "Let my prayer be set before you as incense." And in Exodus 30, God commands the Israelites to create a sacred blend of incense, one so holy, it was forbidden to use it outside the tabernacle. It was scent reserved for divine spaces. And that's the point. In heaven, you become that space. Paul takes it even further in 2 Corinthians 2, saying, "For we are the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing." He wasn't being poetic. He meant it literally. He's saying that those who walk with Christ carry a spiritual aroma, one that testifies of holiness, purity, and divine favor. And this isn't a one-time idea. In Song of Songs, a book layered with mystical interpretation, the beloved is described as, "Your robes are fragrant with myrrh and aloes and cassia." The scent is romantic, yes, but also symbolic of spiritual intimacy. Early Christian writers believed this fragrance represented the soul in union with the divine. So close to God, it begins to carry his very essence. Here's another example. Jesus himself. After his death, his body is anointed with 100 pounds of myrrh and aloes, an extraordinary amount. Why? Because these weren't just burial spices. They were markers of royalty and holiness. Myrrh, especially, was associated with priesthood and divine encounters. The Magi bring it at his birth. It surrounds him at his death. It's a scent that follows the sacred. Now picture this. In heaven, your glorified body doesn't just shine. It emits holiness. People don't need to ask if you're pure. They can sense it, smell it. Just like a priest entering the temple, where his garments were soaked in sacred oils. Your very presence in the next world will announce your purity. And this idea shows up even in near-death experiences today. Some who've returned from clinical death describe the afterlife as being filled with the most beautiful scent they've ever encountered. Like flowers not of this world, or the freshest air multiplied by glory. They can't describe it, but they never forget it. In ancient Eastern Orthodox teachings, the bodies of certain saints, even in death, were said to release a myrrh-like fragrance that filled rooms, even sealed tombs. It wasn't perfume, it was their spirit, leaking out through the flesh. A hint of the transformation that comes when flesh becomes holy. So what does this all mean? It means your glorified body doesn't just look divine. It feels divine, sounds divine, smells divine. Because in heaven, every part of you becomes a testimony, even your scent. Number 9, body becomes pure energy. So far, we've talked about a body that glows, a voice that thunders, breath that carries divine power. But now, let's go beyond all of that. Because the final transformation is that your body itself becomes energy, not metaphor, not poetry. Literal spiritual energy, radiant and conscious, held together by glory. In the ancient Gnostic text, Pistis Sophia, the resurrected are described as beings of pure light and thought, clothed in the form of their true self. They don't walk in flesh and blood. They exist as radiant essence, completely alive, fully aware, but no longer limited by gravity, weight, or decay. And this concept shows up in the Bible too. In Daniel 12:3 it says, "Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever." Not will have brightness. They will be brightness. You don't just reflect the light in heaven. You are the light. Paul echoes this again in 1 Corinthians 15:49. Just as we have borne the image of the earthly man, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly man. You were made from dust, but you're becoming something electric. Let's break this down. Right now, your body is built on cells, water, protein, electricity firing through nerves, but it's unstable, fragile, vulnerable to time. The glorified body, it doesn't need molecules to hold it together. It's spirit dense. It's glory powered. Its existence wrapped in will, not biology. Think about Jesus after the resurrection. He walked, he ate, but he also appeared behind locked doors, vanished in an instant, ascended into realms unseen. He wasn't bound by mass or matter. He was matter infused with spirit. That's what's coming for you. Early mystics called this the body of the resurrection, not just spiritual, but transcendent. It can manifest form, but doesn't depend on it. It can shine, but never dim. It can enter creation and leave it again untouched. Even in modern science, we know energy is never destroyed. It only transforms. So imagine a body made entirely of energy, but wrapped in eternal purpose. A body that sings when you move. A body that vibrates with love and truth. A body that glows with the color of your soul. This is the ultimate restoration. Not just from human to holy, but from dust to divine power. You won't just live forever in heaven. You'll exist as something the earth has never seen. A being of glory, a vessel of energy, a living echo of the light of God Himself. You've been told heaven is peaceful. You've been told it's beautiful. But now you know it's so much more than that. Because heaven doesn't just give you rest, it gives you a new form. A body that never decays. A voice that thunders like angels. Skin that shines like stars. Eyes that see beyond time. A breath that moves the spirit world. No gender, no shadow, only light, fragrance, power, and pure energy. The righteous don't just enter heaven, they become heaven. You won't float like a ghost. You won't be a mist in the clouds. You will walk as fire, breathe as wind, shine like the morning, and radiate the presence of God with every step. This is what ancient prophets hinted at, what apocalyptic writings scream from the shadows, what the church rarely dares to say out loud, that in the kingdom to come, you are not restored, you are reborn. So the next time someone asks what happens when you die, you can tell them, I don't just go to heaven, I become what heaven was always waiting for. And if this opened your eyes, there's more, so much more. Because hidden beneath your Bible, tucked inside forgotten books, are truths too wild for Sunday school? And we're just getting started. Click the next video and step deeper into the mysteries they never taught you. And remember, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be again.
If you or a loved one were sexually abused at these Illinois youth facilities or treatment centers, you may qualify